Eala is heading to Indian Wells, and California has absolutely no idea what is about to hit it. The Filipino community is mobilizing in numbers this tournament has never seen before. Tickets are selling out, sections are being booked in groups, and the tournament directors are reportedly stunned by what they are witnessing. The fifth Grand Slam is about to become something completely different. Do you think Eala will reach the semifinals at Indian Wells this year? And do you believe the Filipino crowd in California will be the loudest fan base the tournament has ever seen? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Let's talk about what is actually happening in California right now, because the scale of it deserves to be understood properly and not just summarized in a single social media post. Eala is in the main draw of the BNP Paribas Open at Indian Wells. Not through qualifying, not through a wild card, through her ranking world number 31. A ranking she earned by climbing from 137 to 31 in roughly 12 months, through results that the tennis world had to stop and pay attention to. The Miami Open semifinals, the Dubai quarterfinals, where she beat Jasmine Paolini, ranked world number 8 with a 6,176 scoreline. The Auckland semifinals, the Abu Dhabi quarterfinals, a gold medal at the Southeast Asian Games, the Australian Open main draw debut. She earned her spot at Indian Wells the hard way, the only way that actually means something. And the tournament organizers have been watching the ticket sales and hospitality bookings since her entry was confirmed. And what they're seeing has apparently left them genuinely shocked. California is home to the largest Filipino diaspora in the United States. The Filipino-American community in this state is massive, organized, passionate about sports, and has been waiting for a moment exactly like this one. A player who represents the Philippines, competing at the highest levels of international tennis in their backyard. Not just competing, winning, breaking records, being called the biggest draw in the sport by former top 10 professionals, having her portrait hung at Nike World Headquarters in Oregon with a caption that reads, "History in full bloom." That combination of sporting success and cultural significance has triggered a response from the Filipino community in California that the Indian Wells Tennis Garden has simply never encountered before. Fan clubs from Los Angeles to San Diego to Daly City are organizing group bookings. Entire sections of the stadium are being reserved by community groups who want to create the same wall of sound that turned Dubai into a Filipino celebration and had Coco Gauff acknowledging the crowd after her quarter-final victory over Eala. The secondary market for tickets during the sessions when IA is expected to play has already seen prices climb significantly above face value. Some seats are reportedly going for double their original cost. This is the economic reality of the Eala effect arriving in American soil, and it is catching the tournament's commercial side completely off guard because nothing in their historical data prepared them for a player ranked 30th in the world generating this level of market demand. For context, Indian Wells is called the fifth Grand Slam, and the name is earned. The prize pool for 2026 exceeds $9 million. The field includes every major name in women's tennis. Aryna Sabalenka, the world number 1 and multiple Grand Slam champion. Iga Świątek, Mira Andreeva, the defending champion. Jessica Pegula, Coco Gauff. The entry list reads like a who's who of the sport's current elite. These are players who have spent years building their reputations and results that command premium ticket prices and prime court assignments at a tournament of this stature. And right there in the middle of that list is Eala, world number 31, who is generating more ticket interest from a single demographic than the established names on paper are generating from the general tennis audience. That is not a small statement. That is a complete inversion of the normal commercial logic of professional tennis. And it is happening right now in real time. 24. The journey to this moment went through Beaverton, Oregon first. Before heading to California, Eala stopped at the Nike World Headquarters, and the reception she received there set the tone for everything that is coming at Indian Wells. Her portraits were already displayed in the famous Nike tunnel alongside the greatest athletes the brand has ever represented. One portrait showed her iconic expression after reaching the Miami semifinals. Both hands on her face. Tears. the raw emotion of someone who had just done something that exceeded their own expectations. The caption, "History in Full Bloom," was chosen deliberately because Nike does not caption things carelessly. Also displayed in the tunnel was a photograph of Eala taking a selfie with Filipino fans, which tells you exactly what Nike understands about why this partnership works. They are not just investing in the athlete, they are investing in the community that shows up for her everywhere she goes. Putting that fan photo on the wall at global headquarters is a statement that the EA story is bigger than individual athletic achievement. It is a cultural movement with a fan base that travels internationally and transforms the commercial reality of every tournament she enters. The timing of the Oregon visit was intentional. Yaya arrived early in the United States specifically to give herself more preparation time for the conditions at Indian Wells. The California desert creates a very specific playing environment. The air is dry. The altitude affects ball flight. The courts played differently than what she encountered during the Middle East and Oceania swings earlier in the year. Getting to the United States before most of the European players are still traveling, getting acclimatized to the time zone, getting familiar with the surface conditions. These are the margins that matter at a tournament where every player in the draw is operating at an elite level. The Rafa Nadal Academy gave her 7 years of training in an environment built on meticulous preparation and relentless work ethic. That foundation shows in how she approaches each campaign. She is not someone who shows up the day before and hopes for the best. She plans ahead. She prepares for specific conditions. And the early arrival in the United States combined with the Nike headquarters visit represents exactly that kind of intentional preparation. The significance of entering Indian Wells with a top 30 ranking rather than through qualifying cannot be overstated for her long-term development. Players who go through qualifying arrive to the main draw having already played multiple high-pressure matches. They are carrying fatigue. They have already spent physical and emotional energy that the direct entry players have saved. Last year in Miami, Eala came through qualifying and reached the semifinals, which is an extraordinary achievement. But it also meant she played more total matches under more cumulative pressure than any of the players she defeated along the way. This year at Indian Wells, she arrives fresh. She arrives rested. She arrives after 2 weeks of recovery following Dubai. And she arrives having visited Nike headquarters, which provided a psychological fuel that no amount of practice court time can replicate. Seeing your own portrait on the wall at the most famous athletic brand headquarters in the world, alongside athletes whose names define what greatness means in sports, tells you something about yourself that training alone cannot communicate. The opposition is formidable. The top seeds at Indian Wells represent some of the most accomplished players in the history of the women's game. Sabalenka at number 1 has been one of the most dominant forces in women's tennis for several years. Świątek has been world number 1 for extended periods and is still one of the most complete players on the tour. Aryna is the defending champion at this event. Any of them on their best day is capable of beating anyone in the field. But the conversation around at Indian Wells is not really about whether she can beat the world number 1 in straight sets on her first match. It is about what happens over 2 weeks when a player with her profile, her form, her fan base, and her psychological momentum enters a tournament and starts moving through rounds. The players who beat her at these events in the future will have to do it in front of thousands of Filipino fans, creating noise levels that the tournament has never experienced in its regular draw rounds. That is a genuinely different competitive environment, and it favors the player whose supporters are making the sound. Sam Querrey, Steve Johnson, and their conversation about Eala's drawing power being bigger than Joel Fence was on the men's side last year have been proven right at every tournament so far in 2026. The crowds in Auckland were remarkable. In Melbourne, they set records. In Abu Dhabi, the atmosphere was electric. In Dubai, Gauff herself addressed the stands and thanked the Filipino fans for being there and for transforming the energy of the tournament. California is a different scale entirely. The Filipino community here is not a small group of enthusiastic travelers who made a special trip. It is an established, large, organized diaspora that has been waiting for this exact moment with building anticipation since Eala's Miami run last year made it clear that she was genuinely capable of competing with and beating the best players in the world. The tournament organizers, who are reportedly in shock at the ticket surge, are not dealing with a temporary spike in interest that will normalize once the draw is released. They are dealing with a structural change in who attends their event and why. Tennis in the United States has been working for years to attract more diverse audiences and to reach communities that have historically not engaged heavily with the sport. Eala accomplished that in a single season without a marketing campaign, without a coordinated outreach strategy, and without anything other than winning matches and carrying herself with the kind of dignity and competitiveness that makes people proud to associate themselves with her story. The ticket prices climbing on the secondary market represent real dollars flowing into the Indian Wells ecosystem from a demographic that was not previously generating that kind of economic activity at tennis events: food vendors, merchandise operations, hospitality suites, parking. Every commercial touch point of the tournament is going to feel the impact of thousands of Filipino fans descending on the California desert. And when I walks onto that court for her first match of the tournament, she is not going to be alone. She will have a wall of blue, red, and white behind her. She will hear her name in a way that most players at her ranking have never heard their name at this tournament. She will play in an atmosphere that makes every opponent feel like they are the away team. Kim Clears said Eala has to deal with the life of being like Michael Jordan in the Philippines. In California, she is about to find out what it feels like to have that same energy transferred to American soil. The Filipino diaspora here is ready to give her exactly what the fans in Dubai gave her, and then some. Indian Wells opens March 4th. The countdown is essentially over. The fans are booked. The sections are reserved. The community is organized. And Eala, fresh from Oregon with Nike's full confidence on display and a career-high ranking that puts her in the top tier of the draw, is about to walk onto those purple courts and experience something that the tournament's history simply does not have a precedent for. The fifth Grand Slam is about to get a very different kind of energy, and every player in the draw who has to face Eala in front of that crowd will understand exactly what Coco Gauff understood in Dubai. Playing against her is one thing. Playing against her and the entire Filipino community at the same time is something else completely. Eala is heading to Indian Wells with her highest ever ranking, Nike behind her, and an entire California Filipino community ready to turn that desert stadium into something this tournament has never seen. The fifth Grand Slam is about to get its most electric atmosphere in years.
Aw.